What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 1111 of Hobby Talk, a cardboard podcast. This is going to be a very fun episode here because we have three big topics to get to. I know one of them is going to be talking about the Super Bowl, as we promised in last week's episode. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I guess, or last episode. So we do know who the Super Bowl quarterbacks are, Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy. Two polar opposites, if you ask me, in terms of NFL stardom. However, is it a better matchup than, say, Lamar and Jared Goff? Who knows? So we're going to be talking about Super Bowl. We're going to be talking about a grading report that I really want to dive into because I made a post about it, and it's some really interesting information that's been kind of surfacing, again, revolving around the hobby. And then later on, let's dive into the National, which I know is not until July, but I think there's something to kind of dive into right there. So, Ricky, how are you doing today on this fine Wednesday morning?
I'm doing pretty good.
Nice.
I'm excited for the Super Bowl. See who wins. I don't want to see Mahomes win another one, but can't bet
Me
against
neither.
him. Can't bet
So,
against him.
if I'm a betting man, I'd probably take the Chiefs money line. If I'm a rooting fan, I'm probably rooting for the 49ers in this matchup. But, break down the Super Bowl to me. We sat here last time talking about matchups, Lamar, Goff, Lions. We didn't get any of that. We got the Chiefs and the 49ers, which I think from a hobby perspective, I guess is a really good matchup, especially with Mahomes. People are already kind of calling him the GOAT. I don't know how, I don't know why, but they are. And then Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, it's just a really good story there for him. So just break down the surface for me. What do you think?
So all season, people pretty much expected the 49ers to, reach the Super Bowl. They were in everyone's predictions and all that stuff. I did not see the Chiefs making the Super Bowl.
After losing week one to the Lions, that would have been a nice little rematch, though, if it was the Chiefs and
Yeah,
Lions. But I mean, people kind of thought things were just going down south this year for them.
yeah, like it was supposed to be a rebuilding year for them or whatever. Like they were not supposed to be this good.
Agreed.
So
Do you
I don't
think?
know.
Do you think Mahomes? So I heard somewhere it was a comparison where it's like, yeah, the Ravens, for instance, or the 49ers have the better team, but the Chiefs have Mahomes, which is a similar aspect to when the Patriots were playing. Is there's been teams that shouldn't have made it to the Super Bowl, like the 2011 Patriots team. Like the offense was good, but the defense sucked. And I know they lost against the Giants, but it's like, hey, though that Ravens team might have been a better team that year, but the Patriots have Tom Brady. So you don't
Mhm.
want to bet against Tom Brady. Is Mahomes that kind of guy?
Unfortunately, I think he is starting to be that guy, which is why if he wins this year,
Yep.
he's not at the table yet, but they're setting him a
So if
plate
he
for it
wins, let's say if he loses, is he a top five quarterback if he loses?
of all time or like right
Yeah.
now.
All time.
Not yet, not yet.
People already have him number one, number two, number three. Now you say if he loses, he's not a top five because I think this will kind of help shape the quarterback market moving forward. Is if he is a top all time quarterback, if he wins, is he a top five quarterback?
What would this be? Number
This would be
four, three?
three and four trips. Because I think if he wins or loses, there's going to be some dramatic. I don't want to say changes. I don't want to say shifts because it's not really like that, but some dramatic. I guess the best way to
Yeah.
explain is if I just say it is because, like, when I think of top five quarterbacks right now, in no order, I'm thinking Brady, Montana, Manning, and then there's just like some gray area. You could throw Drew Brees in there. You could throw Aaron Rodgers in there, but those guys have one Super Bowl though. Dan Marino doesn't have any. So it's like if
Mm.
you want to count Eli Manning as a top all-time quarterback because he has two Super Bowls, well, then I mean that introduced like I can't think of the Bucks quarterback's name from like 2002 that year that they won, but Joe Flacco has one. It's just like you're really introducing a lot of mediocrity. Whereas I think if Mahomes wins, I think he is a top 5 quarterback of all time just because of what he's done and the level that he's done it at, and obviously the swagger he does it at. And that kind of where I was lost to words, that like kind of shift or that change or whatever I was talking about. It's like people don't care about Joe Montana football cards. They just don't, because he's
Mm.
retired and he's not playing. Whereas Brady was, but he's done. And if Mahomes is on that top 5 pedestal, then he's still playing and could be playing for another 10 years. And we're watching a legend, a GOAT right in front of our eyes. And I think from that perspective alone is good for the hobby. Obviously, people that are just kind of annoyed with the Chiefs, it's not really good for. But that's kind of where the spin of Brock Purdy comes into play, is because we expected Mahomes to be here. We expect Mahomes to win. We expect him to put up these big numbers. But Brock Purdy, last pick in the draft, I mean, who expected this at all? And I think that there's more news, more drama, and more good things to come from a 49ers Super Bowl win than there is a Chiefs Super Bowl win, if that makes sense.
So I've been telling people this all around, like whenever we talk about Super Bowl and stuff. It's like, is this what it was like from the out watching that Patriots dynasty from the outside in?
I think
Like
so.
everyone wanting you to lose, making it every year and all that stuff. So I was like, damn. I don't, as much as I don't want the Chiefs to win another one, I do also have to appreciate and admire what they're doing because we went through it for so long.
I saw. So I think if you want to talk about the more recent 3 Super Bowls that the Patriots won, I'll definitely agree. And, it humbles me a little bit. All right, I get it. But I think the first 3 that the Patriots won, where social media and just media in general wasn't to that kind of scale that it is today. Plus, the Patriots back then didn't have any drama queens or, no Taylor Swift and such like that. Like, yeah, Tom Brady became a prima donna, later in his career with, the Brady brand and all that stuff. But like back then, he was basically Brock Purdy. He was the 6th round guy, pick 199. I mean, I tell people this all the time. He's like, back in 2000, if you were opening 2000 Bowman Chrome football, you put Tom Brady cards, you chucked them aside because they weren't
Mm-hmm.
Chad Pennington, who was the quarterback that people were chasing at the time. So I think the Patriots dynasty back then, the first half, was one that people could really root for, because the Patriots just sucked forever and ever. And again, there wasn't that Taylor Swift element. You're not seeing Travis Kelce on every other commercial. And nowadays, I think the Chiefs dynasty that we're seeing today compared to the second half of the Patriots dynasty, there is a lot of comparison, because then you start to see Brady on commercials, Gronk on commercials, and again, social media and such like that. So I did see that it was like a post. And it was like Woody, and there was like tears in his eyes or whatever. And it's like, this is what Patriot fans feel like, watching the Chiefs. And it was a funny post, but it's crazy because I think both teams are really good, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to put any bias aside, but I just think the 49ers team is overall better. But again, how do you bet against Mahomes?
Yeah,
So let
you
me ask
can't.
you this. If Mahomes wins the Super Bowl, his stock's obviously going to go up, right? I think that's just kind of a given. But what if he loses? Does it drop? Does it go down? Does it plummet? Does it tank? Does it stay the same? Me personally, I don't think it's going anywhere. But let me hear your thoughts.
No, if he loses, I don't think it'll drop. But if it goes up, I mean, if he wins, it'll definitely go up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, you can't argue the fact that he's one of the better, if not the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Like that's not. It's at this point, it's not really a debate whether he wins or
Mm-hmm.
loses. So his prices
Now,
should not be lower than anyone else's.
I agree. And like to still see optic PSA 9s go for 300, 400, on a good day is still pretty crazy to me, just because it's a base and it's a 9, but it's affordable for people, and it's a Mahomes rookie. I feel like, especially here at the shop or even at shows sometimes, people's like wants and or needs like really change, depend on the player. Like if I was to give you I'm just trying to think, like a Jared Goff, if he won the Super Bowl this year, his stock would have went up just like Matthew Stafford's did a few years ago. But let's just say Matthew Stafford was in the Super Bowl. People would be chasing his PSA 9 optic rookie cards, the base ones. And then if he loses, no one's going to want them. But if he wins, people are going to want them. However, they're really a cheap card. I don't know what the market is, but it could be like a $20, $30 card for all we know. But people are only going to want it if he wins. Whereas Mahomes, he could win, lose, or draw. People are still going to want it. However, people only want that Mahomes because it's a Mahomes rookie. 6 months from now, no one would want that Jared Goff. No one might want that Jared Goff rookie card 6 months from now, even though he was up 17 points in the second half of the NFC title game. So it just really changes based on the name. Like Lamar, he's going to win MVP, but because of that performance in the AFC title game, Lamar's stock just kind of crashed right now, even though it's going to go up on Sunday, when he wins the MVP, or Saturday, whenever the awards are. It really changes based on player. It really changes based on situation, and obviously the wallet of whoever's buying.
So what do you think Brock Purdy's cards do?
That was actually going to be my next question on my little cheat sheet. I was going to say, so it's an assumption that his value is going to go up if he wins, but what if he loses? Well, since you asked me, I guess I'll answer first. I think it'll dip just like with anything. I mean, it's not going to crash, not going to plummet. It will dip, but I guess it also just depends on how bad the loss is. Like if he gets torched and blown out, people might kind of question like, oh, is Brock Purdy the quarterback? It's like, dude, he had one bad game. I think his value will be fine long term because that 49ers team is going to be good for a few years. I mean, they got McCaffrey under contract. I know they have Debo under contract. So that team overall should be fine. But again, I think it just depends on how, like, if he looked bad as like Lamar did in the AFC title game, Brock Purdy isn't winning no MVP. So I think it might drop, a good chunk for a good while. Will it stay low? Probably not. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. People already high on the kid. So, but even before like the Super Bowl run. So if he wins, they're going to boom very hot. I think
crazy.
I think they'll go a lot higher, like percentage and dollar wise, than Mahomes would.
I would agree because they're already at a lower tag than Mahomes. So like, let's say they were to go up, let's say like $100. Well, that $100 increase for Purdy cards is still affordable than let's say a $25 increase for Mahomes cards. It's because Mahomes is in that, category. And, that's why I always ask, like, what if Josh Allen wins the Super Bowl? What if Justin Herbert wins the Super Bowl? Like, their cards are already tremendously priced for almost no reason, for Herbert 4 years into his career, for Josh Allen 6 years into his career, 7, whatever the number is. And it's like, if they win, then what? Because it's supposed to go up in value, but it's already so high. Whereas Brock Purdy's, it's started low and it's rising because of his performance in play, and he's so young into his career. So like, I mean, obviously it's a conversation for another day, but like, again, what if Josh Allen wins the Super Bowl? Then what? Like, I mean, is his $800 Prism 10 going to become $1,500 like people expect it to be, or is 800 just going to turn into 900? What it probably would do.
See, like you just said, Josh Allen and Herbert, they're already so high for no. I feel like they can go higher, but like they shouldn't be high to begin with. That's the thing.
Like that's the thing. Like when a player gets drafted, like Herbert, when the hobby was really booming, when he got drafted, all the hype in the world, I totally understand it. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, I get it because you're trying to buy into it early. You're trying to get before the curb. CJ Stroud was a great player this year, winning a playoff game and just looking fantastic. But it's that level of hype is unsustainable until somebody does something. Like we're going on year 5 of Herbert. We're going on year 5 of Burrow. At least Burrow's been to the Super Bowl. We're going on year 4 of Trevor Lawrence, who I'm not sold is a quote unquote hit at the number 1 overall pick. We're going on year 5 of Jalen Hurts. Granted, he's already been to the Super Bowl, but still, we need to see this. We're going on year, what was this, 2018? We're going on year 7 Yeah, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're going on year 7 of Josh Allen, and he's been to the AFC title game once. Like, he's a great player in the regular season. I'm not going to say he's not, but to not be able to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs time and time and time again, it has to say something. Especially when the Bills didn't look that great this in the regular season. Like, they could have been out of the playoffs or the number 2 seed, come week 18. So it's just something has to give and take here. Something has to.
I just want to know why Josh Allen is so high to begin with.
I'll never forget his first 3 years in the league. He was so bad, and he improved each year. Don't get me wrong, but like, he was on his way out the door as a 7th overall pick. He was going to be a bust, and then they bring in Stephon Diggs, and then he changes overnight, and he becomes a top 3 player, top 5 quarterback in the league. And that just goes to say that it really depends on who you're surrounded with at the quarterback position. Like, Mahomes, he struggled this year, believe it or not, with an aging Kelsey and little to no help from the receiver. So, like, who's around you matters. And people really forget about that when they're talking about like Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. Oh, let's draft Caleb Williams. It's like, who the hell is he going to throw to? Conversation for another day, Ricky. But yeah, I don't understand the hype of Josh Allen because he's 6'6" and he can hurdle people and he can stiff arm and throw the ball, 80 yards downfield. Woo! Yay! That's not going to win you a Super Bowl though.
Nope.
So let's pivot, switch gears. I want to talk about grading, and because you're getting into the whole grading thing, I've obviously worked with a couple companies here at the shop. Now, let me just ask you a quick surface question. What do you think grading, what purpose do you think grading cards serve here in 2024? Is it more of a collecting to encapsulate and to protect, or is it just a means of potentially flipping? Like, what do you think it's more of these days?
Like for me personally or the hobby?
You personally first, and then the hobby.
So right now I have an order in at PSA that's a bunch of, I'd say like a 20 card order. I'd say half of them are PC that I consider keeping, and the other half are cards that I'm trying to grade to sell. But in general,
See, it's hard
I
to
feel
ask you
like
because you're a collector and you do both. So
yeah.
it's not like you're one or the other. So but anyways, sorry, keep going.
Wait, no, that's fine. But in general, I feel like definitely people grade to try to flip, and
So like my say that again.
that's why PSA gets the numbers they do.
It's crazy that you bring that up, the numbers that they do, because they do get tremendous numbers. And listen, great business. They've sucked a lot of people in, they brainwashed a lot of people, and people try to tell me here at the shop, like, oh, PSA has the most value. It's like, oh, well, does it really? So I go on eBay. We can sit here and argue best quarterbacks all day, but generally speaking, it's gonna be Patrick Mahomes. So I type in Patrick Mahomes, PSA 9, enter, and then I filter lowest to highest. And you want to know what the lowest sales are? I'll save you the trouble. It's $1.99 for inserts, numbered cards. It's quite tragic, to be honest. So I turned to them and I asked them, I'm like, well, does PSA really gain that much value? I mean, if you just submit anything you want, pay $20, $25, whatever the number is per card, and you just watch, you're losing money. So that's why, like, I just don't understand. Anything and everything should not be submitted. Certain cards should, and certain cards should go certain places. I think vintage is great for SGC is great for vintage. I think CGC is great for Pokemon. If you really think you have a perfect card, send it to Beckett. And PSA is just kind of all around, I guess. So I made a post about this, Ricky. You might have saw it. I forget if you did. It's the 2024, January 2024 items graded from PSA, CGC, SGC, and Beckett. Now, I don't think I can pull it up on the screen here. Let's see if I can. I don't want to like mess this up. Oh, here we go. Hold on. Does this work? Oh, perfect. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So that means they can too. Okay, perfect. So when you look at this, what's your first thought?
Beckett has fallen off the cliff.
That was exactly what I said. Again, the big two, I mean, we're going to call big three, PSA, Beckett, SGC. Fine. But typically, the
Oh
two
my
best has
God.
always been PSA and Beckett. Beckett, by and far, has fallen off a cliff. Now, again, this is just January, but I'm glad that there's the month over month and year over year data to show, because month over month from December 23 to January 24, it's only gone up 11% in terms of how many cards they have graded. Year over year from January 23, when the hobby was still kind of booming, but normalizing a little bit, kind of taking a turn, it's only been up 1% from January 23 to January 2024. That was the first thing that I noticed too. And then you look at a guy like PSA, or a grading company like PSA, down 1% month over month. But when you're dealing with a million cards, it doesn't matter. But the year over year is up 22%. So yeah, give me your reactions to this.
The fact that it is only at 58K and they're up from last year is crazy.
And they're up from last month too. I could only imagine what the December data looked like.
Wow, that's terrible. Um, Great for CGC. Wow, jeez.
So there's like more numbers on the like the website. I think it's like gemrate.com or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually dives into, oh, this is baseball, this is football, this is Pokemon, this is other TCG. And it really breaks it down. And a lot of CGCs is TCG
Pokemon.
slash Pokemon.
Okay.
But listen, I don't care what's what. That means there's less cards going other places. So I'm just looking at numbers purely in a vacuum. And when I see CGC is reeling in 184,000, regardless what's being submitted, being second for the month of January, ahead of SGC, who's offering $9 sales, who's offering $14, specials, and ahead of Beckett, while being up plus 53% from December, while being up plus 40% from January 23. I think that is most impressive. And I'm not just saying that because I work with CGC. I'm really not. But I think that whole mantra of big three grading companies needs to be adjusted personally.
Um, I so the thing is that CGC, like you said, does a lot of trading cards and Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And when people say the big three, I think they're more, at least from my perspective, I think they're more so talking about sports.
Okay.
And
That's
you
that's
don't
that's
you
a good way
don't
to look at it.
you don't really see, well, you do see CGC sport cards, but not too many people would submit their sports cards to CGC as opposed to PSA, SGC, and Beckett.
When
But
February's comes out, I want to try to get some screenshots of like the breakdown and such. And then, when that report comes out, not next episode, I guess it would be for episode 13. And was that 4 weeks from now? We can kind of dive deep into the numbers and compare and contrast and see what changed. I think that'd be a good segment to have here on the podcast, is kind of diving into some details and numbers like this. What do you think of SGC here? Always been referred to as the third, and for the month of January, they are still the third. But that year over year plus 94%,
yeah,
that is impressive.
that's basically doubling their.
That's what I said. But like, is this because the $9 specials, the $14 specials, so people are just submitting their cards and getting them back in 10 days for super cheap money? Or are people actually submitting cards to SGC to serve maybe a bigger purpose? Like, again, resale value. They like the look of the slabs. Maybe they, want to collect the SGC slabs because they like the look of them. Or is this just because of the specials?
For now, I think it's just because of the specials and some people like the classic look on the SGC slabs. I mean, small sample size. I ran a poll on my story asking, do you prefer a PSA 9 or an SGC 10? And people still said PSA 9,
Which is
which I found
crazy to me.
funny because if you ask people if they prefer PSA 9 or raw, they'll say raw.
So like, I have a Machamp alt art from, oh shoot, I think Astral Radiance, I believe that's from, and it's an SGC 10. And I've had a little trouble selling it because it's a Pokemon, it's SGC, and that doesn't really mix well. But again, I don't want to crack it because it's a 10. I don't want to potentially risk cracking it because it's a SGC 10. And again, what am I going to do with it? I could submit it somewhere else, sure, but it's already a 10 from a major grading company. So like, well, it's still $100-something card. So like, why would I bother with it? But it does bode the question is where do people lie when it comes to, nines versus raws versus, tens when it's not PSA, that's the 10. Again, would people rather have a CGC 10 or a PSA 9 or a raw card? It's just so many people, I think, blindly fall in love with that mantra of PSA holds the most value. And you can clearly tell that people are submitting their cards, 1.2 million cards, almost a million more than CGC. But why? Again, why? It's just so bizarre. And I hope to see that these numbers kind of come closer together. I think it would be more, be better off to talk about in terms of conversation and debating and such like that. But it's just, people would rather have PSA 9 over SGC 10, CGC 10. And they oftentimes would rather have those cards raw than be like a CGC 9.5 or an SGC 9.5 because the potential is there for a PSA 10 if it's still raw. Meanwhile, it's already graded a 9.5 from this other company.
Yeah, so as I'm kind of, shopping around my James Wood that I got graded. See if I can pull it up real quick.
I'm going to end the screen sharing. There we go.
Okay. This guy right here.
To me. Is that the 9.9? Okay, it is.
9.9 atomic out of 100 auto. So I've been getting messages and stuff saying that because it's a 9, it's less than a raw. So it's like, if I crack the 9, if I crack the case, it goes up in value.
That's what people are telling you.
It's like it makes sense to me at all. Like,
so
sure,
like,
obviously it's not going to be as much as a 10, obviously. But to say if I crack this slab right now, it goes up in value is kind of crazy.
I'm gonna look on Card Ladder real quick. I don't know why I just keep using Patrick Mahomes optic cards because they're just so easy. I'm gonna look up to see what raw versus nines are doing of Mahomes. So just on Card Ladder, the last sold price of a PSA 10 optic base was $1,077. Let's see. PSA 9 did $410. Oh, they don't have a raw on here. Damn it. Okay, well, I'll just go to eBay then. So $410. Now, again, I think this is totally like ludicrous, I think, because you would like to think that getting it graded a 9 is going to help its value. But more often than not, it really doesn't. Again, it just depends on what the card is. And I tell people this: if it's a short print, if it's a thick card, if it's a vintage card, different story. But if we're just going to compare and contrast the same card, depending on, whatever it is, let's see. We have 410, 420 best offer was accepted. I don't plan going looking that up. 370, 300 best offer accepted. 300, 336, 390. So in this Mahomes situation, again, this is just a one-off. It's better to have it as a 9 than it is to have it raw. But people are going to tell you that because you have a prospect auto number to 100, that it's a 9, that it's better off raw. Again, this just doesn't make any sense to me. Again, there's no consistency. If it was consistent that, hey, 9s are always going to be worth more than raw, or raw is always going to be worth more than 9, makes all the sense in the world. But if we're going to have some inconsistent, we could do this with Josh Allen, Lamar, we could do this with everybody, and we could probably find half of the field that we look up be one way or the other, like 9s are worth more than raws, while raws are worth more than 9s. Again, there's no consistency in this hobby when it comes to grading. And that's why I think it's such a huge talking point, Because again, if there was consistency, okay, who cares? Ricky, crack it, resubmit it, or just sell it raw. But because it depends on who you ask, it it's like what do you do? What do you do with it?
Yeah, well, a lot. I feel like a lot of it is trying to devalue it from a person trying to sell you, and then you know pumping it when you try to sell it. So I think that plays a part of it too. Like when
It's
you're buying, when some people are buying whatever, they're trying to make it, oh, it's only a nine, so blah blah blah. And then when they try to sell it, it's like, oh, it's a nine. I don't see anything wrong with it, blah blah blah. So it's like,
it's truly who you ask, which
yeah,
sucks. And that's why like I kind of circle back to my original proposed question is like, what's the purpose of grading cards? Is it for collection or is it to resell? And I guarantee you more than 50%. I don't want to guarantee like a high percentage because I don't really know, but I guarantee you at least 50%. I'd probably even say 60 to 70% is for reselling purposes. Because me personally, who's a collector in my heart, I don't care about the grade of my card. I got tons of cool cards right here. I don't need any of them graded. I got some cards above me. Some of them are graded because they already were. It's just from a collector's standpoint, the number from somebody else to determine the condition of your card should not matter. But if you do go to resell a card, whether it's that card or a different card, the number on the grade does matter. So like whether it's me, another collector, or John Doe or whoever, what's the point of grading your collection if it's your collection outside of encapsulating it for protection purposes? There is no reason to get it graded because again, I don't need this card. I'm just going to point to this card here, which I love because it's, beautiful card in my opinion, to have like an 8.5 on it because someone saw a print line or someone's having a bad day. Now that 8.5 is going to ruin the card for me in my collection because it's an 8.5. I don't want no 8.5 in my collection. So grading, I truly think in 2024 has really become a tool for flipping. And as you can see, people are using that tool for flipping with PSA, with the amount of cards submitted to PSA, because everyone knows PSA has the most resale value. But for collectors out there, they might lean towards CGC, SGC, Beckett for that matter. But again, how many people are in this hobby who are truly collectors compared to how many of them are into the game for business purposes? Does that make sense?
no, that makes sense.
Okay, cool. Well, I just like I have all these thoughts in my head and I just spew them out and hope that I'm making sentences correctly and it makes sense. So I do want to pivot to one more thing, and that was the National, Ricky, because as of like 2 weeks ago, the National is 6 months away, and 2 weeks from now, it's 5 months away. And I already made a video on it that'll come out later this month, but I do kind of want to scratch the surface off here because we've both been to the National. I don't know if you plan on going back, but I do. What was your experience like at the National last year, if you had to summarize it?
Overwhelming, definitely.
I would agree with that.
It's like
But was it a good overwhelming though,
I
or
was
a
gonna say,
bad?
it's overwhelming in a great way because it's like there's so many options and people and so many things to do, and like you see something new every day you go. So it's like it was a lot of stuff. It was a lot to take in, but it was great.
So I think if someone was to go for one day, it would be tremendously overwhelming and may leave a negative taste in their mouth just because there's so much going on, so many people, da da da. But if you're going for multiple days, you can split it up into chunks, kind of like what we did, certain areas and such. And I think the best thing is I love the saying. I forget who said it, but if it's not at the National, it doesn't exist. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great saying because there is game used vintage equipment from like Lou Gehrig. There's ultra modern cards. There's Black Lotus Magic cards. There's all these hobby boxes. There's just everything in between. Grading, live events, breaks, singles, dollar boxes, bargain boxes, case cards. It's just there's so much there for whoever the collector is, whoever's going. And I think it's just I truly love the hobby and the national and how it's just all kind of centered to 1 week slash weekend. I know there is some negative stigma about it. It's hot in there, tight aisles, sweaty guys. Like, I mean, yeah. But like, I don't know. I just think if you think of the best show, whatever that best show is, in my opinion, it's the national. Um, so like, are you going? Do you plan on going this year or no? Take the train
I
in.
would like to. What's that?
I said you could take the train in.
Yeah, I would love to go. I just haven't made any plans on doing so yet. But yeah, no, if I get the opportunity, I 1000% will.
So talk to me about your game plan last year, because for me personally, it's pretty simple. For the shop, got to get inventory. So that's going to be kind of more quantity than quality, although I'm trying to pick out a few nicer cards. But like, what was your game plan last year? Like, I know you were looking for Otani. Were you looking to buy him and flip him? Were you looking to invest in players? Like, what was your game plan last year?
Well, yeah, like you said, I was looking for Otani, but other than that, I didn't really go in with the game plan, which you shouldn't do. You should have a game plan, but I was just trying to like enjoy it more
Hmm.
so than anything. Look at a bunch of stuff, whatever. If I see something I like for a good price, I'll get it. Try to sell it real quick. Yeah, no, I was more so just trying to enjoy all of it.
Take it all, kind of.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to think, because at Atlantic City it was a significantly smaller room, but I was still bamboozled how massive it was. Then we walk into Chicago and it was just even bigger. And it was like, holy crap. Like, it was, like you said, overwhelming. And like, you need like a couple of days, kind of like Disney, to experience all the parks. You need
Mhm.
a couple of days, because that first day, let's just call it Thursday, the first full day. Uh, it's a lot to take in. It really is. And like, if you don't have a game plan, you might kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit, just because there's boxes here and you want to spend some time to go through it. And there's boxes there. You see a card here, but it's probably in another 100 tables, that same card. Um, my biggest thing with the national is, obviously, don't spend all your money at once, but like, take your time spending your money, because a lot of people have a budget, whether it's a few $100s, a few $1,000s, or whatever it may be. And I think, because I tell people all the time, like, hey, go to the national, go to the national. It's so fun. But like, people will see a card or a stack of cards. They're like, oh, wow, I love this. Yeah, let's buy it. Next thing you know, 2 hours later, they have no more money. And
Mhm.
now what do you do for the rest of the time? So like, because me personally, I'll tell you what I did. I'll, I won't tell you how much I brought, but let's say 100%. And I would divide that by 20% every day. And I would use that
Good days,
20%
yeah.
every. Like, what would you say is a good strategy for somebody whose first time's going there? Since it was your first time last time, and now you know what to expect, what would you say is a good strategy for someone going for their first time, outside of have a game plan going in?
Well, if you're going for multiple days, I would say take the first day to really look at everything before you
Mm-hmm.
pull triggers, because that first day is usually when the prices are going to be high, or the dealers might have as much of might not be as willing to come down on their price anyways, just because the first day. So I would say
It's
more so take the first day to soak everything in, see what's out there, and then come back tomorrow or whatever, and then plan out what you're looking to buy.
it's funny you say that, because I think it was the Thursday. It wasn't the Wednesday. It was the Thursday. So like the first like full day, I should say. And I was looking through some cards at some guy's case, I was, pricing them out, trying to find some numbers. And the guy literally came over to me and said, yeah, I'm not doing any bulk deals, da, 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 da. And I was like, all right, he kind of said it rudely. So I wish if he said it nicer, it'd been cool with it. But I literally just slid the cards back over to him and I got up and left. So yeah, take the first day to really kind of dive in and look around and such like that. But I mean, the national itself is just a truly incredible experience, just
Yeah.
all in, because you do have to take that first day to kind of soak it all in and such like that. And I think that's what we did on that Wednesday. I mean, I went to go do the grading with CGC, and I don't remember if I got anything else besides just the grading. I probably did, but you have to take it in. You have to take your time, and you have to go out and enjoy it, Ricky. So that will wrap it up for today's episode, guys. Before we go, as always, Ricky, any outgoing takes before we conclude this episode?
First and foremost, we're still buying James Wood. But yeah, sticking to baseball with spring training coming up, buy those prospects now.
Oh, you took the
Buy
words right out of
those,
my damn mouth.
buy
I was
those
going to say that.
prospects now.
It's crucial because I guess my outgoing take will be, listen, Julio wasn't a guaranteed, on the opening day roster in 2022. Ellie wasn't even on the opening day roster in 2023. They get called up, they make the big league roster, and they blow up, and they take the baseball market by storm. Who is the next Julio? Who's the next Ellie De La Cruz? That's who you need to find out now. Is it maybe locally a Roman Anthony or Marcelo Meyer? Is it Jackson Holiday, who has all the hype in the world? Regardless who it is, you got to get their cards now, because when they do get called up, even if they go 0 for 4 in their first game, the market is going to go through the roof on those guys just for getting a simple call. It's crazy. You got to buy those prospects now. Paul Skeens, Dylan Cruz, Jackson Churio, whoever it is, buy them now, because this is the time. Because if they look good in spring training, more eyes are going to get on them. The market and the value is going to go up again, especially once they get that call to the big leagues. So that is going to wrap it up for today's episode. Ricky, thank you so much for joining me. I had a fantastic time. Hopefully you did as well.
I did. Thank you, Murph.
All right,
See you
guys,
later.
have a good one. We'll see you next episode.